I came up with 3 distinct ways that I know I use formal theory knowledge on a regular basis as a hobby musician. And I can report those ways back to you. Now, if my use cases are applicable or relevant or of interest to the music that you are playing or the music that you want to be playing, then that's your answer. But if my use cases don't have any overlap with your use cases, that's also your answer. The answer is it is not relevant for what you're doing. So kind of depending on your personal musical goals and musical practice, knowing formal theory stuff might be completely irrelevant. It might just be walking around labeling scales for the fun of labeling scales. I think if we were inventing formal music theory right now in 2024, we would not call it music theory, right? We would be calling it tips, tricks, and hacks to get that sound you've been looking for. And if we're just thinking of music theory as the tips, tricks, and hacks to get that sound you've been looking for, well, in that case, knowing what key or mode you're in is the necessary step 1 before you're going to be able to apply the tools in the way that they are meant to be applied. So I promise you 3 ways that I use this stuff regularly. Number 1 is going to be writing and arranging accompaniments. Over on YouTube, I do these little videos where I play a trad tune on my whistles or pipes, and then I write and record and arrange my own original accompaniment for that trad tune. I have a process for coming up with those accompaniments. I record myself playing the tune just on my phone, just a quick and dirty recording. And then for a week or so, I play that recording on loop, and then I improv along to the recording of myself on my guitar or on another whistle or some other accompaniment instrument. And then after a couple days of improv, I'll end up coming up with a progression that I like, maybe a counter melody that I also like. Then I will write those down and then record the whole thing en masse. But when I'm working on the improvisations, I don't want to just be playing random notes. Knowing what mode I'm in tells me what chords are going to fit with that particular trad tune. Knowing what key I'm in tells me what pentatonic is going to work for the counter melody instrument if I add a counter melody. Once you're arranging or orchestrating for 3-4 instruments, you really do have to apply some rules, some boundaries for yourself, or else it's not going to sound like one cohesive piece of music. It's just going to sound like 4 instruments playing 4 different songs at the same time. Number 2, the thing that comes up for me pretty regularly is transpositions. This came up just a couple days ago. Christian and Greg posted this video of them playing this tune, and I wanted to duet it, but it's in D Dorian, which is not a good key for penny whistles because penny whistles can't play F naturals. So I googled around a bit and I found an ABC file of this tune, Scotch Cap. Then I transposed the tune up into E Dorian, which is a very penny whistle friendly key. But I'm not done yet, right? Because if I'm playing in E Dorian while everyone else is playing in D Dorian, it's not going to sound right. So, to adjust for that, I played it on this C penny whistle, because I know playing on a C penny whistle in E Dorian will make the tune come out in D Dorian, because this adjusts everything 2 semitones down. Now, I use the sheet music, and yes, it's always better to figure it out by ear, trial and error, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't interested in memorizing that tune or adding it to my repertoire. I just wanted to bash out a quick TikTok duet. So I have no problem using the sheet music in that sort of way. But even if I didn't touch sheet music, I still would be using theory, right? I might not know what the words are for it, but realizing, oh, this doesn't fit on my instrument. Aha, here's what I could do. I'll shift over to the C whistle instead of the D whistle. That's all some sort of theory. It's just a mix of how much of it are you doing on paper versus how much are you doing it like from intuition. Okay, and the third and final way that I personally find a little bit of music theory knowledge useful on a regular is that, for better or for worse, whether we like it or not, music theory is the common language that we have as musicians to talk to other musicians who are outside of our genre or our culture to try to understand how they're thinking about what they're doing. Like if you and I were living in the 1600s in Europe and we decided that we wanted to get into science, the first thing we'd have to do is learn how to speak Latin. Not because Latin is a sciencey language, but just because all of the books were in Latin. There are tons of fantastic YouTube channels and now TikTok accounts talking about music and genres that I don't know anything about and I don't really have any context for. So it doesn't matter if it's, classical, jazz, flamenco, video game music, film scores. Like, this is the language that people use to talk about that stuff. Kind of like you're stuck. It's the only game in town. It's just having like kind of a basic working literacy in the jargon is enough to make accessible all of this material about music that's outside of my culture, my practice, my expertise. Which, one, for me, it's just like fun just to watch in of itself. It like makes me appreciate that music more, because like it's not just, oh, it sounds cool. It's like, oh, and I know what's going on a little bit. But two, it makes it easy for me to borrow ideas from jazz piano or flamenco guitar or something like that, and slap it into my own practice, my own hobby music. But anyway, those are just like my personal use cases. There's lots of other reasons people learn this shit and use this shit. Like, I don't play jazz, but I understand that for jazz musicians, they create these bonkers looking charts. But the charts are setting up, predetermining a set of changes, modes, keys, progressions that everybody gets to improvise inside of. And by creating these boundaries, you have total free play, free expression within the boundaries, and it will still sound like a cohesive piece of music. If you don't apply that theory and put those restrictions on yourself to begin with, it ends up going all Ornette Coleman free jazz style and just sounds like 5 people playing 5 different songs at the same time. Classical musicians who are writing for a 60-piece orchestra, they need to apply a lot of theory because they're writing for systems. They're not writing for individual musicians. But man, I never decided that I was going to learn any of this shit. What happened was, a few years ago when I started doing home recordings, I decided I wanted to play guitar along to recordings of me playing penny whistle and pipes. And this is just where that process ended me up. But if you get to the end of all this and you say, yeah, none of that sounds interesting to me, that's completely legit. Like, no problem with that. Like I said, like, this stuff is just tools. And if you don't have a need for the tool, why waste your time learning it?